So, when you are a child victim of abuse and you finally make it to adulthood and you are now out in the world, you're away from your abusive parents, and you think everything is going to be amazing and great, and then suddenly the train seems to be going off the track. One of the reasons why that happens is because a child victim of abuse who is now an adult may have asymmetric maturity, meaning they have a lot of maturity in one area and then they might not have enough maturity in another. Like they may be extremely mature in another. So if you are the type of child victim of abuse who was essentially parentified, you might be extremely competent in adulting. Like you might not have had trouble applying for colleges. You you know, get a job, pay your bills. Um, you're pretty much doing well in the adulting piece of things, but you might struggle with emotional regulation, and you also might not discover that until you are actually in a relationship. I also see this with adult child victims of abuse who get pets. Suddenly, like losing their shit out of nowhere with a pet and not understanding like why I'm doing this. So it's a very alarming moment to realize like, oh no, I'm acting like my abusive father or mother. And there are other child victims of abuse who are infantilized in childhood. So they were not allowed to develop independence, autonomy, decision making skills. They weren't given information on how the world works. They might not have been taught to drive. They never got a learner's permit. Their parents wouldn't put them on their insurance, like that kind of thing. But maybe that particular now adult did very well in school because the parents not there, basically pulling the rug out from under them. So they developed like skills and competencies academically, right? So they graduate, but those skills and competencies aren't a direct one for one for the adulting skills and competencies. And then they also may be dealing with, let's say, emotional immaturity. And so this asymmetric maturity, I think what makes it so sabotaging is the fact that it's so extreme. When kids have let's say a normal developmental process in their childhood, all of that stuff kind of goes together. You're building your academic skills while you're also building your decision making skills, while you're also building your emotional skills. They kind of do work in tandem. I'm not saying it's exactly even all across the board, but the cluster is kind of together. Whereas for child victims of abuse who are now adults, it's so extreme. It's very mature here, very immature there. And then also when you're a child victim of abuse and you're looking at, kids who had a great childhood, loving parents, and they just seem so carefree. And it can be very off-putting. Like why how did you become so how did you just you become a person who decides a thing and then does it, and there's no period in between where you're agonizing over your decisions and actions because they're not worried that a parent is going to come beat the whatever out of them, like come beat them. Or they're not worried that their parent is going to keep them up all night before like a big test or presentation, and now they've not only not done well on whatever that assignment was, but now that's then used as an excuse to further abuse them. So, looking at your peers who are so carefree can be so surreal. I find that child abuse, it carves out this place in you, and it gives you depth, but do we need that depth? I don't know that we need that depth. Like that depth will come later. There are things that happen in life you know, that'll sort of deepen us. You lose a loved one, or the relationship ends, or like a sad thing happens. Like there will come times in your life where you're gonna have sorrow and where you're gonna have challenges and adversity, and we don't have to front load that shit. Pardon my language. Like, that's not, we don't need to do that. That's not necessary. Any parent who's doing the like tough love thing, like, you should be the safe foundation for them to go out into the world, not their first bully. But, anyway, so you you have child victims of abuse who are often trying to figure out like how do I be like the other kids? And and it's not. That's you can kind of approximate it, but you're not going to be just like them. But everybody will sort of catch up to where you are. And in the meantime, you want to make sure you're a safe person in a relationship. So if you're struggling with emotional regulation, if you don't have those healthy relationship skills and coping mechanisms, like that's going to be an area to develop. Because especially if you're coming from that background, you are just more likely to repeat the cycle within the context of a romantic relationship. So, we want to be self-aware, and we also want to be having grace towards ourselves. So if like we'll prioritize the safety, and then let's have some grace for kind of what we had to deal with. Which brings me to like therapy. Therapy gives people the ability to practice a secure attachment with a person who's going to be supportive and caring. And so it's not a one-for-one of the relationship that you should have had with your parent as a child, but it is like a good approximation. And it allows us to have like a foundation with someone who respects us, cares about us, is being loving and nurturing, like in a professional way, and also gently bringing things to our attention, and also providing guidance or direction. The last time I looked at the research, so it's been a minute, but the last time I looked at the research, it was less about the modality of the therapy and more about the actual relationship with the therapist. Now, that said, if you have a specific kind of personality disorder, someone in the comments mentioned psychopathy, that's a different situation. Please do go discuss that with professionals. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, your post-traumatic, your CPTSD, your child victims of abuse, like that's sort of where we're at. If we're talking like a antisocial personality disorder, if we're talking psychopathy, that's much more technical. Somebody with BPD is going to need somebody with like a very kind of a technical understanding and approach of it. So, as all things, please do talk to a professional. I'm just some lady on the internet, and please take it and then go get informed from the people who would have like specific knowledge for it. Anyway, you wanna figure out a way to like move forward, having grace for yourself, being safe, and also to recognize like it's okay to just move forward in little like increments. You don't have to become a brand new person overnight. When people do that, I think that's when you get a lot of imposter syndrome, because when the changes happen incrementally, you still feel like yourself, right, from day to day. You don't feel very different, so it doesn't feel like a persona you're putting on. It doesn't feel like something that you're doing at yourself. It's coming from within, and it's much more organic. When you kind of like try to make a whole bunch of changes all at once, I think that's when we kind of possibly step into the area where we might self-sabotage, because it doesn't feel like who we are. Like, if you win the lottery and you go from feeling like a poor person to a wealthy person overnight, your lottery winners don't handle that well, because that's not how they think, that's not who they are. And so this like incremental process of change kind of allows us to shift our thinking patterns while still feeling like ourselves. So anyway, do not feel like you have to be like a brand new person overnight. The thing that you absolutely need to focus on is going to be safety, making sure you're a safe person. So if you, a lot of child victims of abuse don't discover they have like an emotional regulation issue until they have children or pets. And so, if that's you, like, okay, yeah, we absolutely need to establish like safety first. There's no increments on that. That is, you do what you need to do. But for the other stuff, you're going to be working, incrementally, organically. It's going to take practice. Everything you do as a child when you learn, it's kind of like moved up, and it takes some time. It can be frustrating to not feel like where you should be, and it can feel like something was stolen from you. Yes, but it doesn't have to steal our future. And every step forward is a step in the right direction. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.